What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Hope you're all doing well today and welcome to quite an exciting video for me. We get to test out the very early work in progress version of the OEM team's Stark Varg in MX Bikes. It's been a long time since we've had some electric bikes in this game, so I'm very excited that the wheels are moving, so to speak, and getting these bikes ready and prepared for us. And I cannot stress enough before we even start riding around at all how alpha build this is, like super early on. The bike model itself, I'm sure, is going to be re-imported and adjusted a whole bunch. The actual mechanics and geometry and feeling of the bike itself is going to go through numerous changes too. So the guys did just want me to make that very clear at the start of the video. And one thing else that I'm going to do before we even get into the game is show you something quite interesting in the garage. If you've been putting off buying that new MX gear or you're just looking for some new daily MX related clothing, then head on over to fxrracing.com. Code MXPR_Lins15 at checkout will give you 15% off all motocross and lifestyle products. This code is applicable to the European, Swedish and Norwegian websites, not Canada or the USA. And whilst I've got your attention, you may as well subscribe to the channel. It's just one click of a button and it puts a big old smile on my face. Hope you enjoy the rest of the video. So as the majority of you guys will know, when you come over to the garage here and you click on the Others tab, you have a mapping section. It turns out that the guys have accidentally found a limitation with MX Bikes as a game in general, which is you can only have up to 5 mappings at one time. And this was reported as a bug at first, but Paboso replied and just said, yeah, it's just 5 is the maximum. So it'd be interesting to see if he changes this at all, because the Stark Varg itself is known, or is kind of self-proclaimed to be the most customizable motorbike in the world. That you can have 100+ mappings, and that's Stark Varg's. That's Stark's words themselves on their own website. So the OEM guys wanted to replicate that as best they can and give us a whole bunch of different mapping options. Now I'm guessing Enduro here is kind of going to be the most mellow, to give you slow speed, lots of traction, and then down here we've got the Alpha setting, which is essentially more powerful than a 450. Now, obviously they have pros and cons, because you might think, oh, surely you'll just ride the most powerful bike and that's it. However, I've spun a few laps on this alpha setting, and it is so difficult to put that power to the ground. Because it's got so much acceleration, it will spin a lot, so you have to be very gentle. So what I'm going to do for this video is I'm going to downgrade myself a little bit, and I'm going to go on the open map in here, which should hopefully treat it like a normal 450. And we're going to do this in like 2 sections throughout this video. We are going to do a Supercross part, which I'm going to do on this recently released Finn's Farm, the Supercross part of it. Done a video on this track just the other day, but the more laps that I spin on the Supercross part of it, the more I kind of enjoy it. There's some big boy lines that you can still hit on this bike, which is really fun. And then after this, I'm not sure which outdoors track exactly I want to go for, but I'll have a little bit of look through my my track list and see what kind of excites me, and we'll go from there too. So I've spun about 3 or 4 laps so far on this bike, on this track, so just to get my head around it, so I'm not just flopping around all over the place, because with any new bike that you get to test or that gets released as well, all of the characteristics are different, so it's very hard to say, you know what, I've ridden bike 1 a whole bunch, therefore I should easily be able to transfer that over to bike 2, no problem. It just doesn't work that way. And one thing I noticed off the bat on this bike is, well, more so in our open mapping, because I have only tried alpha and open so far, you have to be gentle with it. Obviously there's a lack of engine braking, being the fact that it is an automatic bike and there is not a conventional engine in it by any means, so trying to learn to use my brakes more is a little bit difficult for me, actually, because I use momentum a lot in this game, and quite often I do end up just changing down gears and allowing the bike to slow itself down for me. Can't do that on this bike. Oh, one line that you can do on a 450 on this track is go quad, and then I think quad through this rhythm, which I did on the alpha mapping. I will try again a few times on this open mapping to see if it's still doable, but it does end up being a little bit of a stretch, and hopefully we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. I get to show off this new exciting bike for you, as well as hopefully doing this Supercross track a little bit more justice than I did first time round. It's always, I hope you guys do cut me a little bit of slack when it comes to testing out tracks for the very first time, because it is a difficult thing to do, especially while you're talking. I don't know how many of you watched yesterday's video of me riding Donut MX's Bikini Bottom track in MX Simulator, but literally as soon as I pressed the stop recording button in terms of my voice, I carried on the footage, and for a couple of corners I just started absolutely barking. It was like an on-off switch from talking to not talking instantly transferring over to how fast I could go. So yeah, I hope everyone realises that this is a lot easier to, well, a lot harder to do than it may look or sound. So cut me a little bit of slack. This bike, it's not an easy bike to ride by any means, especially in these high power modes. It's very, very sensitive. It can be a little bit twitchy at times. One thing that I actually really like about it that I wish was a bit more apparent in every bike that we get to use in this game is the gyroscopic effect when you're in the air. So whether that's getting on the power or using the back brake in the air, the bike seems to have a lot of movement. Now, if I go in third person real quick, we do also have the cummy tyres, as I like to call them. This is a tyre issue, not a model issue. I really should change these at some point, because I get it all the time. Like, I get it on the factory bikes, I get it on any model swaps as well. It's purely just the OEM bikes that they work okay on. And I couldn't actually. I think these are I think the Pirellis. Pass. I can't read what it says on the side. You guys are going to be shouting at me because you can probably just tell from looking at it right here. But yeah, I need to change these tyres at some point. It's definitely a bit of an L. But what I was saying before I got a little bit sidetracked there is in this game, as you know, especially in Supercross, we don't have proper seat bounce mechanics. It's all momentum based, so the more, oh god, gentle. So the more speed you can carry around a berm, and the more traction you can keep, the easier your life's going to be, essentially, for tripling into rhythm sections in Supercross. There's kind of techniques that almost simulate seat bouncing, but I think what it does is it doesn't send you further, it just maximises the amount of air time you have, like amount of hang time. And that is like lean forwards and then grab the brake and sit down at the halfway point, and it kind of adjusts the pitch of the bike. However, that effect is more pronounced on this bike, and it's hard to really put into words. It's something that you have to feel a lot. I mean, it's easy to explain. When I get on the throttle, the front wheel rises a lot higher than it normally does on other bikes. However, I thought that was just, the bike has a lot of torque / acceleration, therefore the rear wheel will spin up really quickly, and then that will cause the front wheel to raise up in the air. What I didn't expect to be the case is for them, when I hit the brake, the front also dips really quickly too. And I like that, because I feel like this game can be very restrictive in terms of the amount of movement you have when you're in the air. I feel like sometimes you end up being a little bit of a passenger, which does kind of suck. But whether it's been intentional or not, the bike feels really, really nimble in the air, which is great. It's a little bit stiff in the corners, but you do have to remember it does have a rather heavy battery sat inside it. And you also have to remember that unlike where on, normal bikes you've got a gas tank filled with fuel, usually quite high up on the bike, all of the weight in this bike is fairly down low. So it does mean that the bike is a little bit tougher to get turned in these corners. So when you combine that like stiffness of turning with the lack of engine braking, sometimes it can feel like a little bit of a boat. I don't know if that's something that's going to change with like further testing and updates in the OEM group. We shall see as time goes on, but it is already something that before I even pressed the record button on this video, I mentioned in there after my 3-4 laps of practicing. But there's definitely pros and cons to this, and one bit of information that some of you might be happy with, some of you might not be happy with, is that this bike, as well as the Alta, when they are released for the public, they're going to fall under their own category. It's going to come under MXE rather than like MX1, MX2, for example, that we have right now. I'm kind of 50-50 on it, because I would love the chance to ride these against the normal bikes to see how they compare. Of course, if you run your own server, and I'm running public lobbies, for example, I can include everything, so it doesn't matter. It's more so competition side things that affects. If you are slightly newer to the channel, as in you didn't get to watch any of the 2022 Supercross season, when I actually had a good year and I managed to win the whole thing, I was doing so well that at one point I thought, you know what, let's make this race a bit more interesting, and I rocked up on the Alta, which was the MX1 equivalent. They've got different like names. I can't for the life of me remember what the exact model name was. Now, let's not get it twisted. This Alta was not an OP bike by any means. It was definitely not as competitive as the main 450s were at the time. However, what it was really good at was getting out of the gate. So somehow I managed to get the whole shot, and then I literally proceeded to double my way around the entirety of the track and bring it home and win. Which was very, very shocking, and it was kind of one of them like perfect recipe type scenarios, because the track at the time, I mean, obviously I have to give a lot of respect to Stone Rider for everything that he's done for us in terms of track creation and series over the last couple of years, but I think he can agree, I can't for the life of me remember what round it was in 2022, but the scaling or the way the jumps were built, whatever it was on that 1 week, it wasn't ideal. So there was even a lot of triples that weren't even doable on 450s. So it kind of was a perfect recipe for the Alta to come out swinging, and I'm really glad that I did in the end because, yeah, I managed to get a win, which I think I might be the one and only person to ever win like a big boy race on an electric bike, and probably will be the only person since these are going to be in their own separate category. I'm not sure if you can notice right there. So you see at the just below my right hand, we've got like a little floating black bit. Again, this is what they mean when they're aware of like some visual issues with the model that again will all be updated before release. Don't worry too much about that. I do really want to try and get this quad. Oh, there we go. That was clean. I don't know why I made it look so difficult the first few times. And then we quad out, and then we hit the nice whoop section. I turned a little bit too sharp there. One thing that's quite nice as well is obviously running stock suspension right now. Of course, I don't have a setup for a bike that I've literally just downloaded. It seems to handle the whoops quite well. That being said, these are easy whoops. They are not difficult ones by any means. For the most part, you can just get in them, lean off the back of the bike, and essentially hold onto it. So I will probably need to do some more rigorous testing on some harder whoops at some point. And I'm also interested to see how it handles braking bumps, which I suppose is actually probably a perfect segue to let me go and try a Nationals track. Let me go scrolling through my track list and see what piques my interests at all. Rightio, here we go. So the track that I've decided to go for is the most recent aerial track, which is Unadilla. Although I say most recent, it won't be the most recent by the time this video goes up. The most recent one will be Budds Creek. By the time of me recording this, which is Wednesday the 16th of August, it is the most recent one for me. Now, I thought there's two reasons that I chose this. One is because this is the style of tracks that we ride on these days, so I feel like it's only fair with the amount of braking bumps and how deep the ruts are, etc. It should be a good comparison to the 450s as such. And then also, other reason being really is that this is kind of one of the only tracks that off by heart I know what a good lap time is. So in qualifying, for me, my best lap time was a 2-minute flat 0.9, which, oh god, which I done on the Honda Survive. No, okie dokie. I did not enter that at a good angle at all, which I did not do on the Honda. I misspoke there, which I done on the Fantic. And then after that, I went and improved it on the Honda by a couple of attempts. But yeah, two flat is my kind of main 450 time. I feel like I could hop on a Honda, Yamaha, Fantic and run pretty close to that. If it's not a 2 flat, it'd be a 201 or a 202. So it'll be interesting to see comparison-wise how this bike does. I'm running it again on open mapping rather than alpha mapping. Sole reason being is I would like to have just a little bit more control underneath me. I don't want it to be like crazy power to the point of I can't put any of it to the ground. Might take me a couple of laps to get a bit of a flow going, especially when it, not just for a new bike, but you know, like suspension that I've never used before, where this is stock compared to when I use the like OEM 450s at the moment. I kind of tend to run the same setup from track to track depending on what bike it is, so I know how that each individual bike will react. So yeah, give me a few laps of practice and we'll see how it goes. And if I run a lap that feels particularly good whilst I'm not talking, I will show you that lap without the commentating at all, so you get to see how it goes. And then I suppose we won't actually know the lap times until I'm done with the lap and I can go back to the pits and check it, because still no max HUD, you know, still not risking game crashes at all. And not hating it, it's something that I am definitely getting used to with time. Oh, that felt quite nice. It felt very planted in that rut there. I'm trying to take the same lines as I would do on any other bike as well. I don't want to kind of tiptoe around the rough stuff or like tight corners just because of the bike. I want to put it through its paces as much as I can. And you do have to remember as well that all of the riding done within this video is all within the space of about half an hour. So if we was to compare this to other bikes that we're using at the moment, I have hundreds of hours on those. So it's never really going to be a fully fair comparison. I think it's a nice maybe like benchmark test. That's probably the best way of wording it. Oh god, I'm tiptoeing on the edge of the rut. I don't want to do that at all. You know what's messed me up in that corner twice is I've gone to throw a massive whip on the double before it, and then because the bike's got like different geometry than I'm used to, the whip doesn't come back in exactly the same way that I'm used to. So then I end up being over the left-hand side of the track, so I make the next corner super sharp for myself. Whereas what I want to be doing is whipping over to the right-hand side to open it up so then I can apex the corner as best as I can. You also get a better run over the braking bumps that way too. It seems like what's thrown me off a little bit is the whips. Oh my Christ. Okay, I'm going to jump to the middle there because that's arsing quite a lot without any engine braking, being able to double there and stop. What's messing me up is the whip comes back so quickly And then I feel like I'm almost at an off angle, so then I have to overcompensate and like manually drag the bike the way that I wanted it to go. So lots of getting used to this needed. Did also discover whilst talking to some of the OEM guys that trying to actually make an electric bike in a game that isn't designed for electric bikes is quite difficult, especially when it comes to things like the clutch, because it turns out that, like for example, these bikes do not have a clutch as such. Like there's no clutch lever that you can pull in to stop your bike from moving when you're in gear and accelerating, so to speak. However, on this bike, what happens is if I pull my clutch in and I'm at a standstill and then accelerate, it will hesitate for like 0.2 seconds as if I had actually pulled a clutch in, but then it will go. And then if I pull the clutch in whilst I'm moving, then nothing happens at all. You know, it just rides normal like it should do on an electric bike. And it's these weird little things I don't think many people like consider when it comes to making these. I feel like they're very, very complex things to do, and I definitely feel like if I was to open up and have a look at the spaghetti code of how to actually make these bikes, I would be a very, very lost individual. I'm not computer smart to even start things off, so trying to kind of like problem solve and reverse engineer the coding of these bikes and how they all work would not be a bit of me. I'm pretty sure, like, I'm one of them people where I swear I've got like a mild case of autism, but I'm definitely on the spectrum at some point, because I get these just random urges of, you know, like really wanting to dive into something and give it my all, and then that will last like a couple of hours, and then I won't want to touch it ever again. At first I thought it was just like addictive personality, but it's I definitely think it stems a little bit deeper than that. Yeah, well, maybe I'm not the only one, but it's like if I was to do a new activity, I remember I've been paintballing once in my entire life, and after that one time of paintballing, I enjoyed it so much, I went straight online afterwards, and I was googling all these different like weapons I could get myself and like face masks and stuff, and was really excited. I'm glad that I held off, because I've still not been back since. Not out of not wanting to be fair. It's just not been like an urgent thing or just something that's popped up naturally. Maybe that's that could be something to take the girlfriend to for a first time. Take my anger out on her. I'll take a few little pop shots. that could be a great way of great stress reliever, I think. Right, so crossing the line there, that didn't feel like an exceptional lap. It just felt clean. I'm thinking like a 205, maybe 2060. So that was very, very close. And like I said, not an insane lap by any means, but I'm pretty sure the cutoff for this round, at least in terms of like 450 European qualifying, I'm pretty sure you had to have like a mid 207 to make it in. So you know what? If I was to rock up on the day and given the same amount of time on this bike, I would have qualified in for the Pro Class. So you know what? It can't be that bad whatsoever. I'm going to give it another go, and we'll see if I can improve that at all. But right there, you see how quickly that back end came back round in a straight line? It's almost off-putting in a way, but definitely something that I think you could get used to over time. I did not mean to low line that. Oh god, I'm actually really surprised that front end came back round after it knifed that sharply. Usually I'd be wobbling side to side. You know, one thing that I didn't ask, where I probably should have asked before this, that's a bit of an L on my behalf. I wonder if these bikes have the hill update applied to them. You know, when we got those preview bikes that have been updated so you don't get as funky physics on the uphills and hopefully shouldn't get as many front end knifes. I didn't ask if this is applied to Lees. You'd think by default they would be, but I don't know how long this bike has been lurking around. It's not like something that they've suddenly thrown together very recently. It's been lurking as a work in progress for a while, and it just so happened that the discussion around the bike was brought up and they said, you know what, here you go, test it out. So I'm not too sure about that. I don't think I'm probably going to get a clean lap without sitting here grinding for like 10-20 minutes, which doesn't really interest me in this point in time. The whole point in this video as such is to get a little bit of a taster as such, and there's no point in me grinding these bikes because, as I said at the very start of the video, they are such a early work in progress that they're probably going to change 10 different times before the final project releases. In terms of when these bikes are going to release, I don't have a timeline for you. This is more of a like very early teaser than anything else, probably just to get you all excited and looking forwards to the future. But yeah, I have no idea of timelines. I think they're kind of steering clear of giving exact dates these days because they've done that in the past, and then it's just like this mad rush and panic to try and release things when they might not be finished or 100% how they would like them to be. So I don't mind them taking their time at all. Maybe release one other bike brand as like a preview bike, because I've seen a lot of people saying that they enjoyed the KTM preview bike so much that now they struggle to use the current OEMs again, and it's kind of hindered their enjoyment of the game. It's like, so it's like blue balling yourself in a way, is you ride this like improved bike, and then you realise, oh, I have to use this like inferior product in the meantime until it's all said and done. So yeah, maybe one other bike, maybe one of the Japanese bikes over the Austrian bikes. I'd be a fan of that. Big Japanese lover here. Like my Yami, like my CR. Never been the biggest fan of the KTM's. Husky's not too bad, to be fair. That was my bike of choice in my 2022 Supercross season, so I can't hate on them all too much. But yeah, I think that'll do it from me. If you do have any other questions, queries, concerns, anything like that, then do mention it down in the comments, because I know a couple of the OEM guys do watch these videos and see what people are saying, and they're open to feedback too. I know it's always hard to give feedback on something that you've never ridden before, and like I said, in terms of like model visual bugs, like this little floating black bit below my right hand, that's all going to be updated and changed. I think even the plastics are going to be reworked at some point, because these were all built off of very, very early reference pictures, and now, obviously in recent months, we've had quite a lot more just videos and photos of the Varg in general to work off of as like reference source material. So yeah, lots of changes coming. But I'm intrigued to know your thoughts. Is there any other particular bikes out there that you want to see at some point down the line? Obviously, it would all be added on to the end of what's currently being worked on, but it's nice knowing that we do have these things upcoming in the future, and that keeps me excited. That keeps me looking forward to the future. So, good stuff. Hopefully, big things coming. And before I sign off, one thing that I'm really annoyed by, Paboso, please fix, is we don't have working like dashboards on this game. So we can't actually put anything. We can put a still image, like I could put like my logo and a sub to Linz on there, which I'm pretty sure I done, or sorry, done for me on the altar way back when. But yeah, we don't have a working one in MX bikes, but they do work in GP bikes. And I thought they shared most of their coding with each other. So update, please, question mark. I'd love to have working dashboards on enduro bikes or electric bikes. Please fix, thank you. Thank you very much for watching. Please do drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new, all that good stuff, help Brother out with the algorithm. And have a lovely rest of the day, whatever you're up to. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.